Most metal these days, especially technical death metal, lives on a relentless rhythmic grid. Part of this is practical. When you're synchronizing and recording really precise, complicated pieces, or recording instruments at different times, it's so much more practical to have a click track and a MIDI framework to keep everything together. In technical and progressive metal, this grid will change occasionally through tempo modulation, subdivision changes, or meter changes, but what I'm going to talk about today is an instance where the grid seems to get left behind altogether, or at least is manipulated in a way that's harder to understand in terms of these more common rhythmic techniques. I'm talking about a riff from one of my favorite less well-known dissonant death metal bands, Germany's Ingurgitating Oblivion, from their 20-minute labyrinthine odyssey of a song with a very long name.
A mote constitutes what to me is not all, and eternally all is nothing.
The riff is 2 measures of 4/4, a kind of quick question and answer. There's something subtly weird about this apparently standard structure. But first, that's a cool chord. What is that chord? But anyway, the weird thing about this riff is that these two halves are played at noticeably different tempos in the recording. The first one is played at around 130 beats per minute, and the second one is played at around 115 beats per minute. The answer drags noticeably compared to the question. And this happens every time they play this riff. It's not just like it's a one-off fluctuation. What's more, they tracked this album asynchronously and all to a click track, or at least it seems that way based on the videos I've seen of the studio process. So it seems like this tempo change was programmed in and looked something like this. This sort of thing, where two halves of a short riff are played at noticeably different tempos, is super rare in metal, and it's even more rare in metal where they're recording to a click track. Musicians spend a lot of time developing the ability to keep a stable beat going. This riff goes against all of that training, and I think the effect is so cool. The languid, dissonant sound of that dissonant chord from the second half is exaggerated and made even more striking by being paired with this subtle tempo change. I'll finish this video with a hot take, as the kids say. I think that this sort of tempo play is the future of technical progressive metal. In the last 20 years or so, there's been a ton of cool stuff happening in meter and rhythm with minimal changes to the underlying grid. But I think more and more bands are starting to expand this exploration to include messing with the underlying grid in various ways. The effect here isn't really jarring or disorienting in the way that a lot of rhythmically flashy stuff is, but I still think it's super innovative and effective in this riff. Anyway, check out this band if you're not familiar with them already. One of my favorite progressive experimental fusion death metal bands. Thanks for watching. See ya.